Trigonometry with right-angled triangles, finding an unknown side, lesson 1. There's two main skills in right-angled trigonometry. That's finding an unknown side and finding an unknown angle in a right-angled triangle. So here we've got a right-angled triangle. We know one of its other angles and one of its other sides, and we've been asked to find this side. So the steps are always pretty similar. The first step is you label the sides. And that is, of course, opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. And I find it's most useful to only label the sides of the triangle that have numbers or letters on them. That's because they're the ones that we're going to use in the problem, and so it will help us if we only label those. So this side here, x, is opposite the angle, and this side is the hypotenuse. This is the adjacent, but it doesn't have any numbers or letters on it. We don't need to use that, so we don't need to label it. It's okay if you do. The next step is to choose which of the trig ratios we're going to use. Now, our mnemonic, that means a memory aid for remembering the trig ratios, is of course SOHCAHTOA. And that helps us remember sine of the angle, S, is opposite over hypotenuse, OH. Cos of the angle, cos theta, remember that little circle with a line through it means the angle. Cos of the angle equals adjacent over hypotenuse. And TOA, tan of the angle, equals opposite over adjacent. So that's how you use SOHCAHTOA to remember sine, cos, and tan. You must remember to write theta, the angle, that little symbol, in the ratios. So these are the ratios we get to choose from. So we have to choose the correct ratio, and we choose the ratio that uses these two sides that we've got in this triangle. So that's O and H, that means we're using sine. Obviously, we don't need to write all this when we're doing the problem. We'd have that in front of us already because we know we're doing trigonometry. So our solution, I'll start it over here, is we write the correct ratio. Sine of the angle is opposite over hypotenuse. Now our next step is to substitute in the known values, including the angle. These steps are actually going to be the same for all of our trigonometry problems. Any problem, we will label the sides, choose the ratio, substitute the known values. So sine, we're writing our ratio and substituting all the values. Sine of 38 degrees, don't forget the degrees sign, equals the opposite is x divided by the hypotenuse of 7. We don't put units in our working, that's stay till the end. And once we've substituted our known values, we're going to need to rearrange and solve to get the answer. And we rearrange to get x on its own. Now this one's done in the first lesson because this one's nice and easy where x is on the top. X divided by 7, we need to get x on its own, so I need to get rid of divided by 7. That means I'm going to times by 7 on both sides, but effectively that means I've got move the 7 to here and make it times 7 times sine of 38 degrees equals x. Now I've got the working to find x. I say x equals, I get my calculator, I make sure when I turn it on that it says DEG or degrees up here, and I do 7 times sine 38. You don't need the degrees sign in your working because that's what this is saying. It's accepting that it's in degrees. 4.31 because I'm rounding to 2 decimal places, and this is 5 or more, so I've got to round up. Check the question, what units of length were they using? Because I'm finding a length. They were using centimeters. This will be in centimeters. So this is perfect working for finding an unknown side in trigonometry. And I would expect you to show that working anytime you're doing that sort of problem. You're using these steps, and it's a really good habit to write down each line of working, and then when you've written down what you're going to put in your calculator, that's when you get your calculator out and get the answer. You don't go to your calculator first and then try to do the working. Working, that will tell you what to type in, then you use your calculator.